It is late. The hour is late. The rabbi shall not speak at length in any way, shape, or form. I do just want to I prepared a little something special. I can't resist. So let me just tell you, way back at the beginning of our Torah portions, of our two Torah portions, it says, Vayakel, Moshe brings the Jewish people together. You should know, by the way, that this is the only, from the beginning of the Torah to the end of the Torah, this is the only Torah portion in which the verb Vayakel appears. It's from the word kihilah, which means to bring together. Moshe brings together the people, and what we should expect at that moment is to start reading the long description of the assembling of the Mishkan, but Moshe takes a moment and goes over Shabbos, right? Yeah, Kodesh. 6 days you should do Melacha, and it should be Kodesh. And the Midrash says that that from this we learn that we should, what should we do when we bring lots of people together? The Midrash says we should learn about Hilchot Shabbat, the laws of Shabbos. The laws of Shabbos, so that the Jewish people can continue to teach the laws of Shabbos. So I would like to take 3 minutes and go over one of the laws of Shabbos, and I think I'm probably the only conservative rabbi in the country who's going to teach about one of the laws of Shabbos called Bishul. Okay? I'm going to explain what Bishul is in a moment. Achad Ha'am, a Zionist thinker from the late 19th, early 20th century, one of the people who was trying to achieve the renewal of the Hebrew language, said two things about he said one thing about Shabbos, which is a great line. He said, more than the Jewish people have kept Shabbat, Shabbat has kept the Jewish people. Okay? Really important part of Jewish identity. The other thing which he said is that learning Hebrew, learning Judaism in translation is like kissing a bride through the veil. You're kissing, but it's not exactly the same thing, right? And what he was talking about was not only the importance of learning Hebrew, but understanding that when we learn concepts in Judaism, if we learn them in translation, we're not getting the exact same thing. So, for example, you've heard you're not supposed to work on Shabbat, and it's not true. There's another word for work, it's avodah, but that's not the word that's used in describing what you're not supposed to do on Shabbat. What you're not supposed to do on Shabbat is something called milacha. That's the word, milacha, right? And it has something to do with creative labor, with changing the world. And the rabbis in the Mishnah give us 39 categories of melacha, if you thought the Torah reading was long, okay? 39 categories of melacha, and one of them is bishul. And what's bishul? You can think of it as cooking. Okay, I really think that I'm the only conservative rabbi who's ever. I may be wrong. Okay, but given a thing, but cooking. Let me give you a good definition of bishul. It is the use of heat to alter the quality of an item. And this applies whether the heat is applied through baking, boiling, frying, roasting, or most other types of cooking. And it applies both to food and also to drink. So what does this mean? Changing the status of an item. You would not eat, I hope, raw chicken, because if you did, you would get salmonella, or I don't know, just a very bad tummy ache. And so chicken is inedible, and you're not allowed to take the raw chicken and make it cooked chicken. That you have to do before Shabbat, right? However, if you have chicken, then you can use a platter, you can use some other ways, and you can warm up the chicken. Warming up the chicken is not understood as cooking the chicken, right? So you wouldn't have a raw pizza, right? So you cannot bake a pizza on Shabbat because you're taking it from being raw and making it baked. This applies to liquids, and what that means, by the way, is that in observant homes, there are some things which are around. First of all, a plata, right, which is sort of a hot plate, right, so you can heat up some foods on Shabbat. The other thing you'll find, when I have my coffee in the morning, right, I have it set on a timer. Right? There are authorities who say you can't even, but I go with the authorities who say you can't because I really need a good cup of coffee, right? But I have it set on a timer. And then the other thing you'll find in an observant home is either a mecham is one word for it, or kumkum. right? Which basically means you're not allowed to boil water on Shabbat, but if the water is already boiled and it's plugged in, then you have hot water in an urn and you can use that hot water, okay? And here's what I'm going to throw at you. So that's a description of the halachas of Shabbos. We've gone over at least one of them. And one of the first incidents of Shabbat, besides Shabbat Breshit, right, the first Shabbat when God rested, is when we get manna. You remember this? Right? We get manna from heaven, and God says, I'm going to give you 2 on Friday. Don't go out and collect. And of course, somebody goes out and collects, because there's always that person, right? Somebody goes out and collects. We'll say more about that later. But the idea is don't collect on Shabbos. And the idea is that your food should be prepared, right? And when we think about Shabbat, it is the remember Zecher Ma'aseh V'Reshit, the works of creation, but it's also Zecher Yetziat Mitzrayim. Shabbat is also connected to coming out of Egypt. We're going to celebrate Passover in just a little time, in 2.5 weeks. And what are we celebrating? In Egypt, it wasn't just that you were working for Pharaoh, and it wasn't just that you were being abused when you were working, it's you were working all the time. All the time. And what I want to say is that's not just a story from long ago. And all of these devices that were supposed to give us lots of free time, like our washing machines and like our computers and like our phones, it's all entered into every moment of our lives. Now, instead of buying things in a store and your home being your home, you can get on your phone in your bed and buy things. The marketplace has invaded our bedrooms, and it's invaded every moment of our lives, and we work all the time. And Shabbat is about saying, there's one day a week when I'm not a servant to all of that. And when I can experience the world as receiving the blessings that are there and prepared for me. And so I invite you to cook before Shabbos, and don't cook on Shabbos. Get everything set so that what you have to do on one day of the week, you still have to do dishes, okay? But at least one day a week, all you have to do is just open up your refrigerator. Maybe warm something up, right? But just enjoy the world as it is. And this is one of the ways that our Shabbat is giving us a taste of freedom. Shabbat Shalom. Please rise. Chatzi Kaddish.